Lecture 2. Now we start putting the nuts and bolts together of the HACCP plan. HACCP is a technique that applies from farm to consumption. Sometimes you'll hear it called farm to fork. I kind of like farm to fork, but sometimes they refer to it as farm to consumption, so I've got that one on here. So what's the farmer doing with the product? What's Cisco, US Food Service, the distributor doing with it? What's your loading dock doing with it, all the way up to the customer. So from the farm or from the manufacturer up to the consumer. Different facilities with the same menu still need their own HACCP plans. Why would that be? Why can't we just have a generic HACCP plan? Well, because they may have different equipment, layout, people, structure, even though they're the same operation, even though they're the same McDonald's. But you have McDonald's in Nome, Alaska and McDonald's in Key West, Florida, they would have different issues, right? Plus one might be brand new, a year old, and the other one might be 20 years old. So they have different significant hazards, preventive measures, critical control points. So the basic structure, they could start with the same thing, but then they have to tweak it to their own operation. The best plan to use is one designed for your specific operation. So you can take a generic plan and then you tweak it to yours. So you do your things one way. You have certain equipment that other similar operations may not have. So you can start with a generic plan, but then you design it for your specific operation. Fully implemented HACCP plan will reduce the risk of foodborne illness. We're not saying that it's going to stop all foodborne illness. The point of HACCP is we're going to reduce the risk of foodborne illness. It's prevention based, meaning we're going to fix things even though they never happened, but things that we know could happen, we're going to put systems in place to make sure that they never happen. Keep in mind the HACCP plan must be revised when new products, processes, or equipment are introduced. So you get new products. You never had lasagna before. For new processes, you never made the lasagna from scratch before, or you never had a mandolin before. You would tweak your HACCP plan for the new equipment. HACCP plans are required for the seafood industry. They did it on a volunteer basis themselves many years ago. All public schools in the country must be HACCP compliant by 2007, and they're not there yet. So that spells jobs for you. If you'd like to be in the food safety business, they would love for you to have HACCP, and there's not many people who have it. So public schools are still working on that. It's a USDA mandate. And any food manufacturers who ship food across the state lines must have HACCP plan in place. There's 3 components to setting up your HACCP plan, and you will do them in this order. First, you will assure that prerequisites are in place. The place is clean, you're passing your health inspections, you have your recipes set up, and so you have the basic food safety as we know it today in place. That would be your prerequisites. Then we have the 5 preliminary steps. What type of operation are you? What kind of food do you serve? Who are your customers? Those would be preliminary to getting your HACCP plan in place. And then we'll do the 7 HACCP principles, which comprise the plan. What hazards do you have? How and where do you control those hazards? Prior to forming the HACCP team, prerequisite programs must be in place. That's good basic food safety as we know it today is happening before we make it even better with a HACCP program. Examples of prerequisite programs can include pest control, so you have a company come in once a month and do your pest control sprays, and you keeping your doors closed and all that, so you don't have a bunch of pests running around. Waste management, so you have your trash collections done at a regular basis and got that under control. You have vendor certification programs, checking with your vendors to look at their operations and make sure that they're okay and that they're licensed with the state and all that. You have your training programs in place for food safety and other things. You have an allergen management program to warn customers in case you have allergic foods or foods that people would be allergic to. If you're practicing FIFO, first in, first out, in your store procedures. You're doing plant audits and your employee hygiene, so your people are clean, they're washing their hands and all that. What's the best way to be sure you're always ready for inspection? So this is standard fare, right? What's the best way to be sure that when the health inspector comes in, you're ready? And that would be to hold your own regular self-inspection so that it's no surprise when the health department comes in. You just do that same thing on a regular basis. So you're always ready for an inspection. Easier said than done, but that's a good goal. An important part of your prerequisites would be having all of your standard operating procedures in place. So those would be define the steps to be taken to reach an objective would be your standard operating procedures, such as clean hands, hot food, proper discarding of spoiled food, receiving procedures, ordering standards. Examples of SOPs are on page 40 to 42 in the HACCP implementation manual. So these are, instead of saying every time people need to wash their hands before they touch the food, before they do their veg prep work, before they work on the serving line, they need to clean their hands, or rather than each time say, and here's how you clean your hands, 20 seconds, blah, blah. You're going to say CSOP number 23, which describes how to clean your hands properly. So that would be your standard operating procedures, or SOPs. When you set up critical limits for the preparation of a salad, for example, and the hazard that you're talking about is hepatitis, one of the critical limits would be that the employee has washed their hands in accordance with SOP number 344, which explains how to properly wash one's hands. Okay, so now we have our prerequisites done. We've got everything is nice and clean, people are clean, places are good, life is good. We're liking our food safety operation, and now we're going to take it up a notch to put a HACCP plan in place. So first part of doing that will be to do our 5 preliminary steps. They're preliminary to doing the HACCP plan. So we need to remember the 5 preliminary steps in order, as well as the 7 principles. So it's my job to teach you how to remember them in order. And because of the test, we'll ask you what to do first, what to do second, what to do third. So first thing we're going to do is assemble a HACCP team. Now, logically speaking, you can't do anything without the team in place. They're going to do all the work. So upper management's going to put a HACCP team together. HACCP team can't do anything regarding food safety until they know what are the products. So we're going to list what products, what we have on our menu. Then now that we have the team together and we know what the products are, we're going to say, well, how are we going to use those products? How are we going to use that veal patty? Are we going to defat fry it? Are we going to put it in the oven? What are we going to do with it? Also, what kind of people are we going to serve it to? Are we serving it to old people, young people, little kids, hospital, nursing home, or regular restaurant? Are we going to put it in on a buffet line, or are we going to serve it to waitstaff service? All of that is the intended use. What do we intend to do with those products? Then once we know that, we're going to put together a flow diagram. How does that product flow from the loading dock through to the customer? Where does it go? So that we can then go back and say, well, what could happen food safety wise to those products as they're flowing through the kitchen? And then step 5 is we're going to do an on-site confirmation of the flow diagram to make sure that we got the flow of the food through the kitchen correct. So to remember that, I came up with a acronym called ADICO, A-D-I-C-O, A-D-I-C-O, and that would be assemble, describe, identify, construct, and on-site confirmation of the flow diagram, ADICO. So just a little something to help you remember the order that they go in. So preliminary step 1 is going to be to assemble the HACCP team. On that team, we're going to have some managers, supervisors, shift supervisors, slash managers, front of the house managers, lead personnel, chefs, cooks, receiving clerks, servers, stewarding personnel, dishwashers, people from every section of the kitchen. It's not a team of managers, but you need some. Obviously, you can't have all the pot washer level people doing this, but it's going to be the actual people making the salads, washing the dishes, will be a part of the HACCP team. So why have a HACCP team? Why don't we just say, okay, Fred, you figure out what we have on our menu, and Gladys, you go and check what kind of food safety issues there are, salmonella, E. coli. You check all that stuff out, and John, you go check with our vendor and see if they got a clean operation. Why do it as a team? Because we all know that if we had 10 people sitting around talking about this stuff, we're going to come up with a better decision than each person independently doing it. So having a team in place as compared to just tasking individuals to work independently formalizes the process, empowers the team. So if the one of the team members is over in veg prep, they work in a different area and they're asking questions and they're snooping around. Why are you in my area? Because we're on the HACCP team and we're coming up with a better food safety approach called HACCP, and formalizes the process, meaning that at the end of the day, when the team comes up with suggestions of things they need more refrigeration or this, that, or the other, then management sort of has to do that because they were the ones who put the team together. And it promotes ownership of the plan by the employees because they and not management established the process. So I did a program very much like this 20, more than 20 years ago, I guess, in a hospital. And I'm the kind of guy that goes to a seminar and hears something and actually does that stuff. So I heard something about Dr. Deming, and he in Japan after the war he put together this program called Quality Circles to improve the manufacturing and to help Japan come back, and it was the same process. So we had a Quality Circle team, and the members from various parts of the kitchen were on the team. They'd sit around every Friday morning for an hour and they'd think of stuff that we did wrong, and we were a good operation. Only good operations do this stuff right. The lousy ones continue to be lousy. And so here you go. They came up with pages and pages and pages of problems. Then they figured out how to fix those problems. So it does work, I can tell you that. Members of the HACCP team must have knowledge of food and the processes, have operational experience, so not just people that sat in the office, but people that actually have done the cooking and the various washing of lettuce and that. They need to know the equipment and what it's used for, what are the capabilities of the equipment. In other words, what do you use to saute, broil, fry your salamander? What are the capabilities of the equipment? So how many pieces of chicken can you put in the oven and have it cooked to temperature in the allotted time? The HACCP team members should have the ability to identify and characterize various bacteria that could pose a danger to customers. So need to have some people that are spiffy in food safety, been through the ServSafe or CPFM course. This would be a place where you might bring in the company nurse to sit on the committee during the times that you're discussing the food safety, what are the issues and how to fix those issues. And at least one team member needs to know the names of the bacteria and their characteristics, so that as you go through and you determine that you have salmonella on this product, they need to know what salmonella is, what the characteristics are, how you kill it, how you find it, how it gets cross-contaminated, and that type of thing.